There we go. Joel, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I love doing this.
Yeah. So like I was telling you earlier, I came across your page on Instagram following the hashtags randomly of in my area, and then clicked on it and saw what you guys do. And it's pretty like from what it seems like just reading that, it's really awesome, especially nowadays, like with what everything that's going on. So why don't you explain a little bit about what it is you guys do?
Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, we kind of brought back the old school home visits. We kind of do visits at your house, but we added some technology to it. So basically, you need a doctor, you get on the website, schedule a visit, and we show up. But we also do things like primary care. So, we get a lot of, hey, can you just be my doctor? And I'm like, yeah, sure, we can do that too. So it's kind of like we come to you, we come to your work, we come to your house, dorm, workplace, office, you name it, we've been there. And that's kind of makes it more convenient and a little bit easier to access.
How did you guys start all this? Like, where did the idea come from?
Man, that's a good question. So I'm a family medicine physician by trade. All I did really was ER since I got out for about 9 years. And while I was doing ER, some things would kind of rub you the wrong way. Some of that, it'd be expensive for some people, and some people you couldn't treat, and nothing you could really control. Is just the way the system is set up. So I'd always thought, I should just, say, hey, you need a doctor, I'll come over to your house. Because a lot of the stuff you would see in the ER really wasn't emergent, to be honest. So I had an idea, and it's shift work too, by the way. So, I would do a couple 24-hour shifts here and there, then I would have several days off. So on my days off, I thought about maybe doing some free visits for the elderly or veterans or something like that. I just never had time to get that going. And when I would mention that to people, they say, man, that's a good idea. You should do it for everybody. I said, hey, that's not a bad idea. So I'd always thought about doing something like that. And then 2 of the places I worked at went bankrupt, just mismanaged, overgreed. And I was like, you know what? Forget this. It's either now or never. I'm not getting any younger. So let's try it and see how it works out. And that was about 3 years ago.
And then so is there a lot of people that do these local like house calls as doctors, and then you hired a bunch of people, it looks like you get people on your team now?
Right. Yeah. So when I started, obviously it was just me. And I would take anybody, any time of the day, any day of the week. I would take anybody, right? Any problem you had, I would go see it. So luckily I've got some good people around me now. I've got a pediatrician. We have another full-time physician. I got several nurse practitioners. We've even expanded into a couple areas, Waco, and heading into the Woodland soon also. But no, there really isn't. Now there's some home health care companies that have been around for a while. They're more Medicare driven, so usually more for elderly and people who just need home health care specifically. They don't really provide, pediatric care, stitches and things like that we can do. But as far as doing what we do, I haven't been able to find too many people. I think there's a couple companies in the country out on the West Coast, I think, that do it, but that's about it.
So you guys do stitches and stuff if you get hurt and super bad, like you get cut, you need stitches, you just give you guys a call?
Yeah. I've done stitches at construction sites. I've set up tables behind restaurants. I've done it on dining room tables before.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's right up. It's great. I think most ER doctors would tell you that, that their job is trying to make do with what you got, kind of. So, I kind of had that mentality like, hey, I'll figure this out, And when I first started, people say, well, how much can you really do at the house? And even myself was, can I really do all this? But then the more you do it, you're like, hey, I can do anything. I can stitch that up. What's the difference? Sit down, let me take care of it. I can splint that up or do this procedure, get that out of your ear or whatever, you can do anything.
Do you accept insurance or is it straight cash basis?
Great question. No, we just accept, we don't file with insurance ourselves. But what we do is we can get patients just an invoice that they can submit to their insurance company. And then they can get it applied towards their deductible, however they want to do it. And we do that all the time. So,
wow. So, man, that's crazy that you work with them, because I've heard just it's either yes or no.
yeah. Oh, we're talking about with insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what I've learned so much of this as I've so much about medicine. Once you get out of this system, and take a look at things, you really see how many problems there are. Just getting out of that system, I'm able to do strep tests at your house or on your dining room table, a flu test on your kitchen table. I don't have a lab certification that you would have to have if you took insurance and took government insurance, because they want to regulate and make sure you have up to date with all this stuff. So I can do that stuff. If I see an elderly or a veteran or a mom who's got 3 jobs and 4 kids and is struggling, I'd say, look, this one's for free. Don't worry about that. You can't do that when you're in the system, because you can't charge any less than you charge for Medicare. So getting out of the system, it gives you a lot more freedom to really run a business like you want to run it.
I'm super impressed with this, because you hear this talked about all the time, but nobody actually does anything. I never see any action towards any of it. And this is like somebody doing some good, like putting it in there, like doing something that was needed. And you started 3 years ago and you ramped up, and now you have all these doctors. And it seems like now with everybody shut down, and then what is it? What do they call it? Procedures, the non-emergency procedures. Why did I have a brain fart? But you can't go in, like, you're not supposed to go in the hospital for any of that stuff unless you have a emergency or whatever. So you guys will come over during this pandemic, if you want to call it, and see people and visit them. And I think you even said that you test for COVID. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's interesting how things play out. This really was right up our alley, to be honest, because people didn't want to go out, and for a little while couldn't go out, right? So no big deal for us. We went out and went to go see them like we always do. So it was not too much of a change for us. We did. We still do COVID testing, and it's kind of died off some, as it has everywhere. But yeah, we were cranking them out for a while. I mean, it was busy, a lot of COVID testing for a little while. But yeah, it worked out. It works right into what we do, into our model, just being able to go to somebody so they don't have to get out. They don't have to take the kids out. We can go to them and they don't have to go anywhere. So it really works into our model well. And
the fact that you do pediatric too, that's something like I hate. My mom is an RN. She still is. She still has adolescents and everything. And she worked in the ER as well, both her and my grandpa. So I've been around it like kind of my whole life, or my younger years anyway. And then my mom was a nurse. I can't, like, at no point, I will not go into the hospital unless I like absolutely have to. There's no way I'm going in. Like, I don't.
Sounds like a nurse's kid for sure.
And I, like, even seeing the doctor, I'm like, just patch me back. Just is it emergent? Do I really need to go? I probably should go more than the way I think I need to go, but that's just my mentality. So, but if I could have somebody come over to the house or meet me or whatever, instead of going to a doctor's office and wait forever to get seen just for a regular checkup, you guys do that too? Yeah, we do annual checkups. We do women's health. We do kids physics. I mean, you name it, we do it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is crazy cool.
It's funny you mentioned that. I get a lot of that too. I get, the husband whose wife finally pinned him down and said, "You have no excuse. You don't have to go anywhere. He's coming here." And they're like, "Dang it, you caught me." So I get a lot of those too.
I mean, every cut that I've had, stitches, I mean, we just strip it back together. Yeah. It's not like, I mean, it would have to be, I almost chopped my finger off, and my grandpa just like, I can put it back. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm
staples. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just like, put it back in the game. Like, I don't, this is annoying. I don't want to have to go in and get all the stuff. And then they'll say, well, you got to go get your tetanus shots that time again. I actually asked my mom one time, like, how bad is it if you get tetanus? And then she told me, like, well, you can get lockjaw and die. And I'm like, I'll go get the shot.
That's right. How many people does that happen to, Mom? Really? Come on.
I just had to ask her. She knows me so well. That's the way she answered me. Like, I mean, you can get lockjaw and die. I'm
That's
like,
right.
oh, okay, then I'll go get the shot.
That's funny. She's right.
But so obviously, you said the testing has slowed down. Do you think people are less concerned?
That's a
Less
great
worried?
question. I think, the rates have gone down, at least locally and across the nation, the rates have gone down. And we can attribute that to whatever we want, but the rates have gone down. So there's less um, excitement or fervor or panic almost to go find, I'm saying it's not, it kind of is a vicious cycle. It builds on itself. Our rates go up, people worry, they get sniffles and drainage, and then they want to get tested, and then there's more cases, and then people get worried more, so it kind of builds on itself. So now that it's kind of settling down, people are starting to settle down some as well.
Isn't that isn't that the way like most viruses, things like this work? Where I mean, there's going to be, if you tested for every virus, wouldn't it be like where you have this surge? It's just this one's so weird and has the media's attention as well. So that combination of the two things blows it up where it plays on people's fear a little bit. And then, I mean, I'm not the guy that says it's not real, and all that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. That the reaction to it and people it plays on their fear. And then once it stays around long enough, and this is just my theory, obviously an opinion, once it stays around long enough, it almost becomes normalized that it's there. You're like, oh, I'm not as worried about it because it's going on. I've known somebody that's had it. I know somebody's, friends that had it, and they turned out fine. So, okay, well, I'm less worried about it now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole nother show probably on COVID. It's its own animal. I hope whenever this is done that I never hear the word COVID again in my life.
Me too. I'm right with you, dude. I'm right with you.
I don't ever want to hear it again, ever. Maybe read it in the book when I'm 90 or something.
You're like, you lived through the history. Like, yeah, I lived through that time. Let's move on to something else.
Let's not talk about it. Don't say that word to me.
Well, okay. So what can people do outside? Like all of that fear stuff aside, like everybody's scared to leave their house. People still yell at each other, I guess, if you're on Twitter. I don't know. I'm not around all that stuff, but I'm very big on like just boosting the immune system anyway. My mom, although an RN, she was actually like she's a big like earth healthy person, like more than I am for sure. I'm like, that's a little bit iffy on that one, Mom. I don't know if that's gonna work. But boosting your immune system is like a real, that's a real deal. That's the best protection I have because I'm a guy that's not gonna ever be crazy fearful of anything like that. I'm gonna be like, well, I mean, if I go out, I'll go out. I'm just going to live my life and have fun, as safe as I can, but also I know you can't live in a bubble. That's not the way viruses work. So what can people do on a regular basis for everything? This is not just this virus. This is like everything on a daily basis to improve their immune system and help them keep from getting sick and fight things off.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at the crux of that is, it's not an overnight thing, number one. You can't wake up like, ooh, I need to boost my immune system. What do I need to do? It doesn't really work like that. I think taking care of yourself over time is the best thing. So, staying in shape, staying healthy, eating well, regular exercise, the stuff you've heard about forever, all that stuff helps. So when things come up, you're as ready as you can be, as opposed to waking up one day saying, ooh, I need to get my immune system going. It doesn't really work like that. So that's number one, is it's an everyday thing, not just an every once in a while thing. Secondly, vitamin C and zinc, especially for COVID, has been shown, of all the information out there, good or bad, that definitely has been pretty tried and true this whole time. Vitamin C and zinc has helped. I mean, vitamin C, your grandmother probably told you, hey, you need to take your vitamin C every day, So, and then there's some, she's right, so definitely that will help. But nothing beats taking care of yourself every day. Don't smoke. Obviously don't do drugs, eat healthy. That doesn't mean you eat salad every day, but, don't eat ice cream for every meal. When you eat that stuff, make it the exception as opposed to the rule. Really take care of yourself. Regular exercise, good sleep, things like that. Washing your hands. I mean, number one, washing your hands. I mean, that's been around before COVID, during COVID, and hopefully after COVID. I mean, wash your hands. That is the number one way, period, to prevent illness, is washing your hands.
Really? So washing hands, number one.
I mean, I think just, Joe Blow out there, what can I do? Are you washing your hands? No? Okay, that's number one. It's the easiest. It's the least expensive. It takes no time. It's simple and it works. It's tried and true for hundreds of years. So yeah, it works that well.
I want to say, and maybe you know the exact number. I'm going to mess it up because I read the number. I thought it was an awesome stat, but they were saying like before, when doctors would see patients do surgeries, et cetera, and not wash their hands, the deaths, once they figured out and started washing their hands, like how far it went down. Like it's a crazy chart. If you ever look up that number, I don't know if you know it or not, but it's, if for anybody listening, that it's insane. Like that's the proof where you go, it's kind of hard to deny that.
Yes. No, you're totally, I've seen that. I don't know what the number is, but I've seen it too. And we learned about that, in school, and you're right. It's tried and true, and it never fails. So yeah, that's the easiest, again, the least expensive, the least harmful to you. It's like some supplement you're buying off the shelf. I mean, that doesn't hurt you to wash your hands. So it's the easiest and the best thing to do.
And what's the difference between that and just using the hand sanitizer?
Yeah, great question. So, hand sanitizer is not bad either. In the doctor world, hand sanitizer can substitute for washing your hands in certain instances. Now, if you got like mud on your hands, like you've been working outside, or something obviously visible on your hands, you need to wash them with soap and water, all that kind of stuff. But if you've done that several times a day and it's just in between, just going from here to there, sanitizer is fine. But at least wash your hands several times a day, sanitizer in between, that kind of thing. That's usually the rule.
And what is the, like, so I've heard a lot on vitamin D, and I love sunshine. And whenever I was little, my mom would say, go out, like if I wasn't feeling good or I'm trying to get over being sick, she would really like take me outside, and I would hang out with her in the sunshine. And I almost instantly, like that later on that day, would feel better. Yeah. It was almost, I don't know if that's placebo. I don't know if it's getting me out of my bed outside or whatever it is, and I love the outdoors, so I don't mind, but I mean, I'm hearing all these stats, and I mean, I'm walking during the real big heavy time. I'm walking without my shirt on around the block, like I'm the weirdo, like, what's that guy doing? Like I'm just walking and soaking up vitamin D, man. That's right. I'm enjoying it. But what's the benefit of the vitamin D? And is it different between just soaking up sunshine and supplementing? And should you get tested to see what your levels are in the first place? And do you guys do that sort of stuff? And
yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, definitely we can do it. We can do any test under the sun, to be honest. But I'm kind of a hands-off type of doctor. I'm not big on medicines. The best medicine is none at all, right? We don't want to have to take medicine if we don't need to, or even do testing or imaging if we don't need to. Vitamin D, it's been, put on this pedestal and taken off multiple times throughout history. Like it is the key, it is the golden vitamin we've been looking for, but then we'll get some study that says, oh, really, it's not, never mind. And then 5-6 years later, oh no, it is. Vitamin D is back. It's the winner, So I don't know where we are in that cycle right now. It's definitely important. You're right. We're meant to be outside, at least some. We're not meant to live in a hole in the ground, right? So we're meant to be outside. Sunshine is the best way to get vitamin D. Your body's better than anything else you're going to take, right? Some people have problems with that, and that's a small percentage, and they would need some vitamin D supplementation. As you get older, you don't get out as much. You lose some vitamin D. And definitely it's been shown to help, especially with bone strength, even stability, decreased falls, all kinds of studies on that has shown benefit. But as far as like you, a young, healthy guy, you should not need vitamin D. To be honest, at least vitamin D supplementation. You should be fine getting outside, and you should be good to go.
And just soak up as much sun. Does the sunblock block the vitamin D from getting in there? And this is just from listening to podcasts and like doing research, vitamin D actually turns into a hormone, right?
Yeah, the sun actually makes a reaction and turns it into vitamin D. It turns it into a more effective or better vitamin D that can work in your body. So no, the sunblock would be okay.
Sunblock's fine. So because my dad cakes the stuff on, like,
right,
he lathers himself up, and I've always wondered, does that block the vitamin D? I don't know. Like I'm not sure about it. So
yeah, I think. I mean, there's different extremes of sunblock too, right? There's like the guy, your dad, like you mentioned, who, head to toe lathers up every couple minutes, right? There may be some, depending on the barriers that are used. I mean, there could be some barriers to your vitamin D formation with that. But as far as just normal sunblock, no, you have to worry about it.
That's pretty
Especially
cool.
in the sun that long, it should be okay.
That's cool information, because I don't know that nobody's really ever explained it. Whether the UV, does it block it? Does it not? So you're saying, like, for the most part, you're probably going to soak up enough vitamin D to get your levels up and to a good state, even with sunblock on.
Yeah, usually, especially if it's just normal, plain old Jane sunblock. Now, again, if you're the guy that puts the barriers on and all that, then it may not be as effective. But yeah, if you're out in the sun enough where you need sunblock and you're outside, you're doing okay. The sunblock is good. You need to wear that. That helps with, skin cancer that we've found out, things like that. So definitely use that. But as far as making vitamin D and making that reaction that the sunlight does to turn that vitamin D into a more usable form, it should be fine.
Right on. Now, how about kids in school, which is a gigantic topic right now? So, like to give parents a lot of like info, because people will get scared about their kids and fearful and all that stuff. I mean, rightfully so. I'm not blaming their fear, because it's coming from a place like they don't know and they're scared and they don't want to let their kids go out and do stuff. But how dangerous or how at risk are the kids that you've seen? And then how can you prepare them if you want to send them back to school to get socialization and all that other good stuff that, kind of get back to a normal life? How can they help their kids as far as like boosting their systems and taking care of them when you ship them off to school to be around people?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Definitely that is a sensitive subject these days, kids and going to school and all that, get a tread lightly. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's just not a lot of information this whole time. There's not been a lot of information, or not a lot of good information out there. So, even on the healthcare side, to be honest, when this first started, there wasn't a lot of information for us either. We were kind of just, hey, let's figure out this as we go. This is what we've done in the past. Let's do it this way. So it's the same for everybody. There's just not a lot of information out there. As far as kids, I think some of the things we talked about, as far as immunity, vitamin C has shown to help. So any like daily kids vitamins is going to have vitamin C in it. Just maintaining good sleep habits, staying healthy, just their normal stuff that they would do, eating healthy will help really. As far as specific things you can do when they're going to school or if they go to school, that's a tough one, because, kids, especially if you're talking little kids, like kindergarten, first grades, I mean, them keeping a mask on will probably be comical, right? It'll be interesting to see how that works out. I feel so bad for the teachers, right? So realistically, I don't see that being a huge way to prevent anything, to be honest. But, I think if they can wear it some, that will help some. And I think the schools are I think to the best of their ability, they're going to try to keep people spaced out. And there's going to be less people in school probably this year. So the classrooms won't be as big. And it's going to be, I tell my kids, I've got kids that go to school. I'm like, look, you're going to have to be flexible, because I guarantee you how it looks the first day of school is not how it's going to look the last day of school. It's going to be totally different, and it's going to change multiple times throughout this year. And as parents, you got to look, this is brand new ground. No one knows, so you can't get too upset because no one knows. I mean, you just do your best, and that's all you can do. Things are going to change. You're like, hey, we're have to do it this way for a little while. Okay, let's do it this way for a little while. So, all you can do is get the information you have, and make a decision that you think is best for your kids, and then go with it.
Do you think? So in kids, I know in adults, but everything's different. You hear they soak up vitamin D faster. Everything runs faster. Obviously, metabolisms go different rates. Right. You can just see that by what they can eat and drink, and it doesn't really,
right.
affect them right there that you can see. It does affect them a little bit, but not the same way. Do you think exercise is going to benefit the kids the same exact way as it would an adult in the same situation?
Theoretically, yes, but most kids, you don't have to worry about exercise, right? They, whatever, go do laps around, they don't have to worry about it. As adults, you get more sedentary as you get older. So you have to say, hey, I need to get up and do something, where kids usually don't have that problem. It has become a little bit more problem for kids these days than it has, 100 years ago. But in general, kids usually don't have a problem being active and moving around compared to adults. But yeah, it would benefit them as much as anybody else, but they usually just don't have a problem.
Gotcha. I'm kind of with you, and it's one of those weird things where nobody knows. So what do you do? And it's going to be different. I was laughing about it the other day because before all this happened, if your kid didn't go to school so many days during this, you were in trouble and the cops would visit you. And now it's like, well, if you want to stay home, you can.
Yeah, you better not come to school if you got the runny nose. Yeah, exactly.
It's just funny how it turned. And I thought I always look at the bright side and the good that comes out of things. Right. It's we're flexible and we change these things up on the fly with this thing. And all of a sudden they're realizing, well, more people can actually work from home than they have been. And so there's less overhead and buildings and businesses. And they're getting production out of people being at home. They're getting the same things done. And this person's happier because they're at home with their family a little more. Right. And so on. But also with the kids in their school, you realize how little time it takes to get all the schoolwork done. And they can do it from home. And so now they've all of a sudden got more time as a family, if that's their choice. If they're motivated and they're disciplined to stay home, we're realizing as a society, oh, that's not so weird to be homeschooled.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree.
And you can get the benefit of doing both, in that sense. This is what's cool about it to me. And I don't mean to go off on a total tangent, but it's you can now because I was homeschooled and I had to get all these little special exemption type things and go to the school and, do tests and stuff to be able to play sports for the high school. Yeah. There was a long process if I could even get into that. They had to vote it in and all this stuff. So if now you could technically be homeschooled and play basketball, football with your team, you can, and you don't have to worry about it because you're part of that school. It's kind of a cool blend of the whole system.
I agree. It'll be interesting to see how much of this stuff sticks when it kind of gets back to whatever the normal is going to be. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what sticks. Is the staying at home work stuff stick around? It might, especially if it saves people money. It saves businesses money. Will the school thing stick where you have options? There's nothing wrong. It's always good to have options, right? So it'll be interesting to see how much of this sticks around.
Well, it's you guys are the doctors. It's awesome. Now you have options. You don't have to go to the emergency room. You don't have to go over here. You can have an old fashioned, but I love tattoos, obviously, and I get neo-traditional. It's a modern twist on the old tattoos, right? The old style. It's just freshened up. That's what the house calls are now. You're not just coming over there with some Sloan's liniment and rubbing it on the top of them and saying, "Oh, I hope you get better."
That's right.
You know, it's like you get all the stuff that we have in the modern thing with the house calls. The functional medicine, I heard somebody talking on there. Do you do much of that yourself? Is that part of like your whole thing and your whole group, or do you have specific doctors that do specific things like that?
Yeah, we've got a specific doctor who does that, Dr. Suarez. She's awesome. She's certified in functional medicine. You have to take a course to do that. Now, she's a family medicine doctor as well, but she got certified in functional medicine. She's fantastic. My wife sees her, has seen her for a long time. She's great. I mean, they're really in-depth visits. I'm talking about hour and a half, an hour sometimes, of her sitting down and going over everything, all your history, your nutrition, your medical problems, any medicines, anything, surgeries, everything, and then kind of formulating a specific plan that's personal to you, getting some specific labs that will help formulate a decision, and then go from there. Hey, let's try these supplements or some of these things that we can use that's specific for you. The next person is going to look totally different. They may have a different set of labs she orders. In fact, they will. No one's the same, and they'll have a different plan for that person. So it's much more individualized and personalized, and really in depth. But she's awesome. I mean, she's much more popular than I am, for sure.
Well, I mean, this is fascinating to me all the way around, because I think with something like your thing, if it grows in popularity, we'll start to get more doctors into the preventative side of things rather than the reactionary side of things, which is what doctors technically are anyway, reactionary. But if you can, people trust you, like you're a doctor, you went to school to help people. Right. They've been told to trust you. If you're sick, you go see the doctor, they fix you. Like, oh, I can trust this person to help me out. So if something you say about health, like when you're telling people take vitamin C, exercise, eat a little better, that's all super important stuff coming from somebody that they respect the opinion of.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great, functional medicine really is a great, it's been a great addition to our business. I tried for a long time to get her to come join me. And I finally think she just got tired of me bugging her. So she's been great. I think it's, initially it was a lot of women who used it, but to be honest, now there's a lot of guys doing it, gentlemen, and it's beneficial for everybody. Even just sometimes to get to know about yourself. I'm like, oh, maybe that's why this happens to me. Just even some of those things that have been around for a long time. I'm always tired, but I don't think it's a big deal. Even things like that helps with that.
That's awesome, man. And you mentioned something earlier about sleep, even when we were talking about the kids, but overall in everybody, like sleep patterns, when you don't have structure, can kind of wax. They can kind of go wacky with some people. I didn't sleep for a long time. I'm better now. I'm still not great because you form habits and you just you do things and you're like, it's hard to break those. I spent 3 years going to, waking up at 3:30 and going to bed at like 11:30, and like I can function just fine. And then, meet my wife, we get married, and she's like, she calls it errany, because like whenever I don't get that amount of sleep, I can function. Yeah, I can make decisions. I can still perform and do things, just not at 100%. Like I definitely drop, and the further that goes, I drop lower. And once she got me to start sleeping better, I actually feel a huge difference in my cognitive ability and just everything that's going on around me. So you mentioned that earlier. Do you do anything, like, do you mention that to your patients too? Like ask them what their sleep is like and suggest getting more?
Yeah, I think sleep is really overrated. I mean, excuse me, it's underappreciated. I'll put it that way. It's really important and overlooked. So I do ask people, and that's a common complaint. Hey, I'm not sleeping well. And usually there's a root cause, whether it's, especially these times, I've seen so much anxiety. It's just skyrocketed just due to everything that's going on. So that affects people's sleep patterns, among other things. That's kind of like the hidden problem with COVID that no one talks about is the skyrocketing anxiety and depression that just is smoldering on everybody. that doesn't get talked about. Even if you don't have COVID, you still have these problems. You're not sleeping, you're not doing well at work, and then you're frustrated, and then you're at home, you can't go anywhere, and then you get frustrated with so it's super important. And it's not about, not necessarily about what time you go to sleep. It's more about habits, like you mentioned, the key word. It's making a habit of getting, 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep a night, every night. Now sometimes obviously you have plans and things like that, but overall consistently getting sleep. And if you're not getting sleep, figuring out why, is it anxiety? Is it something we need to talk about to help you get back and get sleep? Because that really does help everything. Like you mentioned, it can help cognitive ability, help your healing. It helps your, everything, immune system, everything can help with sleep. So it's important and overlooked a lot.
Yeah, I found out just from doing my own research and stuff, that's when the most testosterone as a man like regenerates and everything through there when you're sleeping for your so muscle recovery, everything else. It's like super important just for anything. So if you're athletic and you want to go out and do stuff and you're constantly stressing your body, it's super important to have that sleep so that your muscles recover so that you can be better or build muscle, whatever your goal is. Like it kind of seems like one of those things that's universal. And it's so simple. Like it's just like the washing the hands. It's free.
Yeah, exactly.
It's free.
It's so easy, and you'll like it. You'll feel better if you do it. I promise.
and you'll like it. Like it's like, oh, it's almost an instant fix. This one, because you sleep and you immediately get up the next day. You're like, oh man, I feel better.
That's right. Instant gratification.
Instant gratification, but you got to actually take the time to go sleep.
True. Yeah.
Well, so the pediatrician part, so you said something about going to work. Like you go to people's businesses. Do you go talk to their businesses and go visit them as like a whole team, or is it just personal? Like, hey, I'm not, I need something done here at work, and you go visit them on the job. Like, how does that system work with what you got?
Yeah, it's really initially it was just like, hey, I'm sick, I'm at work, or something happened at work. Can you come see me at my office? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll come over there. Because you think about it, a lot of doctors' offices are, 7:30 to 5:30, and that's when people work. They're like, how am I supposed to go to the doctor when I'm at work? So it kind of fixes that. Like, hey, come to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'll come out there. So we come see people who not feeling good or okay to go to work or just run down or whatever. Have a visit at their work. I have started going to work and doing more discussions and talks, especially with COVID. Trying to talk about some plans we could put in place for COVID to try to help lower the risk and that kind of thing. So we did do some of that. So yeah, we deal a lot with businesses, especially the local small business owners and things like that.
That's really cool. Do you go in and assess their business? Like, look what they're doing, or do you just go talk to their employees? Like, hey, these are some healthy habits that you can do. Or do you meet with like the business owners and also tell them, hey, you need to apply these strategies to keep your employees safe?
Yeah, a little bit of all, really, especially with COVID. I would get businesses say, hey, we need to test all 40 of my employees. And I'm like, whoa, what happened? Tell me why. You're like, well, UPS guy came in and he was positive. I'm like, well, let's talk of this for a second, because that's going to be like $10,000 to test everybody. How long was he in? Who was he around? Did he have a mask on? And then you end up finding out, hey, we either don't need to test anybody or we need to test one person. So you would get a lot of those calls, and it wasn't their fault. That they were just worried, especially when it first comes out. You don't want to be the business that gave someone COVID. So I can understand where they're coming from. They're just worried, and they don't want to, they don't want to be that business. So it did go into that some say, hey, look, let's spread people out. If they can work from home, get them from home. If there has to be in the office, let's spread them out. So if someone does come in, it's just to 1 or 2 people, and you don't have to test the entire office. So there was some of that as well.
What do you do? This just sprung my mind because I've had this actually asked me at work before and by several people. Like they're asking me what protocol is and what do you do? And my question to them is like, I said, how are you going to quarantine at home? Because they're worried about their family. I said, I know me, I can't go anywhere else.
Right.
if my wife gets it, she can't go anywhere else. Like
Right.
we certainly can't go to a hotel. We can't like there's really no way of us separating. And we live in a modest but nice, nice home
Right.
for us. But there's nothing we can do. What are we going to do? Go in a different room? We're still in the same
Right.
house, and
I
somebody's
agree.
still got to take care of that person, so on and so forth. So what, is that something that you would stress people do or try to do if they can? Or what kind of precautions do you take if somebody does get it and they're in the same household?
And that's a tough one. Um, I think you have to start looking at time frames. With as much information as we have right now, it's kind of based off time. So you look at, it usually takes between 4 and 7 days after exposure to catch it. So you start looking at time. Hey, I've been around these people for 3 weeks now, and I've been feeling bad for 10 days. Then you know what? It's just hang out at home. I mean, there's no reason to go anywhere. At least in my mind, treat that whole home as one person, and y'all stay at the house. But as far as separating rooms and things like that, I don't get worked up over that, because I'm, look, you've been around them for 3 weeks. I mean, you live there. Realistically, you've been around them, and it's too late to do much about it. Now, if you're coming from out of town, you're like, hey, I just started feeling bad. I haven't been home yet. I was around a guy 2 days ago and I hadn't been home yet. Then you can start saying, hey, well, maybe if it's realistic, you could go separate, go live somewhere else or whatever, separate from your home. But that's not usually the case. Usually it's someone who's been there and now they're feeling bad and they've been living in the home. So oftentimes I would say, look, let's be honest. Your wife, your kids have been exposed because you've been there for a week. There's no reason to making this harder than it is. Let's just stay at home. Everybody stay at home, and let's treat everybody like we all got it starting right now, and quarantine that way.
I think that part is real comforting for people to hear. I mean, I know it would be for me if I was nervous about it, but I think it's more of a realistic comfort saying hey, instead of just panicking, just treat, I love what you said, just treat that home as one person and just all of you quarantine there, and make sure that everything is good. Because I think a lot of people get worried and nervous about their family as well.
Right.
And that's a really good way of looking at it, is just that, hey, I mean, there's nothing you can do what you can, which is treat it as one person and then, rock and roll after that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
That's the way I look at it for sure.
So you do you do hormone testing, you do all sorts of stuff with your visits for people. Are the majority of your clients do they range in age group as far as for you, or is it more, because I know you mentioned some home health and we all get that picture, when you get up in age and you need more home care and that sort of thing. But do you find that you're getting a lot more younger people calling you and younger families and, maybe even single people, college kids and so on, using your services?
Yeah, I would say probably, if I had to pick, our biggest demographic would be young families. If I had to pick one. Now we see college students. I go to dorm rooms. So we see our fair share of college students when they're around. And then we even see, I have a group of elderly that sees me, even though we don't take Medicare and stuff like that, it's just too convenient for them. They're like, I don't care, and so I do have a group of elderly. So we see a lot, but if I had to pick one that probably would use us the most, it was young families, and in particular, young moms. Because let's be honest, moms make the medical decisions, right? They're the ones that say, little Johnny's sick, we need to go to the doctor, or Susie's sick, we need to go in. They're not feeling well, or I'm not feeling well, I need to go in. So that's usually, if I had to pick one demographic, that's who it would be.
Do you do a bunch of do you do any prenatal stuff or deal with pregnancies and things like that as well?
No, we don't do OB. That's one thing we had to kind of draw the line. At least not intentionally. I guess I could deliver a baby if I need to, but I'm not planning on it. I'm looking for it.
Gotcha. Is that something you're looking at doing in the future down the line? Getting is it even something that's possible where, because, you go in, my wife's pregnant right now. She goes in, she's starting to where she goes in every week for just a checkup, measure the baby, because it's getting closer to that time. So is that something you're interested in, or something that you're just like, that's not anything that we want to get even put into our lane?
Man, that's a good question. I think it's definitely doable. It's not something I've wanted to sit down and tackle, to be honest. But it's definitely doable whenever I have time to sit down and figure out how that would look like. It's all about, there's more risk there, right? So you have to, it'd be a lot more equipment we would need to use. You would have to have, it's just a higher risk. So we'd have to make sure it was a safe environment for, and you have two patients, right? The baby and the mom. So you would just have to make sure there's less risk. And let's be honest, there's people doing home births all the time. So it's not like that's a crazy idea. But those places are set up for that, and they have backup if something goes wrong. So they have all those protocols in place. I would need to do that. So it's definitely possible, but not anything I have plans to sit down and tackle, at least not yet.
And I guess yours would be a mix, and there's already kind of a niche market for those home, like
Right.
with doulas and midwives
Yeah.
that they have, where they do everything from home. I've had two of them on here, the ladies from BirthFit, who are awesome, but I guess they do that same sort of thing where it's like they make house calls, whether it's a home birth or hospital birth, they're there for it,
Right.
that sort of thing. So I guess I was just asking the question because I thought about it in my head, like, oh man, I mean, she's going in every week. It'd be cool to have somebody just come, a certified like a doctor with all the equipment and the same exact checkup. You're like blending the two worlds of midwives and doulas with actual OB.
It's possible. It's just sitting down and figuring out, to be honest.
Gotcha. Man, this has been an absolute blast. I love all the information that has flowed through. Like, I could sit here and ask you so many questions and go on to so many different things, man. It's super cool. I think what you're doing is awesome. Like, it's really awesome. I hope somebody gets a lot of benefit out of this podcast, because I know I did. Let everybody know where they can find you, what the best way is to get a hold of you if they have any sort of like emergencies happen, or they just want to try, your system out and have a house call or learn more about your stuff.
Yeah, sure. It's the easiest way is just to get on the website, and it's just docishere.com. So DOCISHERE.com, or they can call, and our phone number is 979-571-1967. Even if it's for questions, because it's a little different, call us, ask the questions. You can get on the website, schedule a visit, email us, whatever you like. We're big on communication. So you have a question, we'll get right back with you.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks, Joel. This has been a blast. I'll put everything in the show notes. I'll blast out your website and stuff like that, and I'll share things that you post, because I think what you're doing is awesome.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. This was fun. If you ever need me again, you let me know.
Oh, believe me, any sort of thing that comes out, any information, you're the first phone call. It's going to be like, hey, call Joel. You want to be on here and talk about how we take care of this? Okay, cool.
That's right, man. Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks.